that clip got you as excited as I was when I caught that monster off the beach, but you're having a hard time consistently catching snook from the beach, well, I'm making this video for you. You're in the right place. I'm going to go over everything from the rod, reels, lines, all the way to what time of the year and what kind of barometric pressure you should be looking for. I'm going to show all the knowledge that I know about these fish in this video. So if you're ready to go catch more snook from the beach consistently, go ahead, get your rod, get your stuff ready to go. The tide's about to change. We got to get out there. Now, when I go snook fishing in the beach, I use 2 rods when I go. I take a live bait rod and I use a lure rod. I'm going to start with the lure rod because to me that is the most fun way to catch a snook off of the beach. When it comes to artificial, I like to run an extra fast rod, meaning it bends high in the rod, giving the lure a good popping action. For live bait, fast or medium will do. My personal preference is a star rod Stellar Light. This is a 6 to 14 pound line class. It is designed to throw a 1/4 ounce to 3/8 ounce lure. You want something that's going to have a soft tip so you can feel what that lure is doing, whether it gets hung up on seaweed, if it's touching the bottom. You also want to have the backbone on that rod so that when you need to put a little bit of heat on that fish, maybe he's dumping all of your line, maybe he's making a swim towards some structure, and maybe there's pilings or rocks on the beach, you can pull that fish away. Hell, there might be people on the beach. Who knows what you might have to steer him away from.
Oh shit, it's a nice snook.
Moving on to the next rod, which is going to be my live bait rod. Now, this is the one that I like to use for pilchard and mullet, even a shrimp on a jig. So you still want something with a soft tip. You want to feel if the pilchard or the mullet is swimming effectively, that they're not sitting on the bottom dying. And you also need a rod with backbone because snook are strong, powerful fish. If you're finding any of this information helpful, I would really appreciate if you hit the like button just to let me know I'm doing something right or wrong. My personal preference when it comes to a live bait rod, in particular with pilchard, it's going to be a star rod Sieges. This is a 7/6. This is a medium to heavy backboned rod. And if I'm going out there and I'm going to be using mullet, a bigger bait, a stronger bait, I'm definitely going to beef up my rod. In that situation, I'm bringing out my Tsunami Airwave. This thing is almost like a meat stick. I've caught everything on this. I've whooped up 12 to 15 pound jacks in about 3 or 4 minutes with this rod. Very well designed. We're moving on to the next thing. But what reel are we putting on this thing? My personal preference, a 2,500 to 3,000 size reel when it comes to artificial. You want something small, you want something light, you want something comfortable. Because you might be out there for 3 or 4 hours throwing this thing out all day, and you definitely don't want to catch cramps, you don't want to get injured, throw out your rotator cuff because you're casting a brick. So you want to have something small.
Oh my God.
My preference for a long time was the Penn Clash 3000 for my artificial. It was a tiny little reel. It had about, I don't know, I think it's like 15 to 20 pounds of drag. And it was a CNC machine, main gear, one piece. It was an excellent, excellent reel. My only downfall with this reel, very sensitive to water. Second, I got this thing splashed in the surf, all the bearings locked up. I had to replace all the bearings. And based off of that experience, I upgraded to the Penn Slammer 3500. This is just a little bit bigger than I'm really used to, and it's also a lot heavier than I'm used to. But I have a sense of confidence whether I'm gonna go on my kayak or I'm gonna fish on the beach. This thing can hold up to it. So live bait reels. I got the Penn 4500. That's what I use for my live bait. That's what I'm going to use for my pilchard and finger mullet. Once I'm going up to hog leg mullets and those bigger 8-inch, 10-inch mullets, I'm going to throw out my Tsunami Sawtex. Again, powerful reels, pretty compact in size. Is it heavy? It's a little heavy. But when you're live lining, it's a little bit easier because you're putting that bait out and he's doing the work. You're just leaving this thing on an open bail and you're holding the line and you're feeling that line slip out of your fingers as that fish continues to swim. If that line isn't slipping out of your fingers, close the bail, pick up the slack, feel that bait. You should be able to feel if he's swimming or not. Open the bail, and that's the process until a fish strikes. And when a fish strikes, that line is going to fly through your fingers. It's going to rip like there's no tomorrow. There's no mistaking a pilchard swimming speed to a 35 to 40-inch snook swimming speed. And you're going to just see that thing flying. You give them a second to eat because you want that circle hook to get in that mouth. Close the bail, get tight, lift up the rod tip. No hook setting, just lift up the rod tip slow. And if you think you're going slow enough, go slower. And you're going to feel that line load up, and he's going to make the run. That's what we fish for. Now we're on to the next step. What line am I going to put on these reels? My personal preference. I'm going with Diamond Braid 20-pound braid. Color doesn't matter. I went with blue because it's a high visibility thing. When my pilchard or my mullet is swimming off in the distance, I can kind of track where he is. Is he going to seaweed? Is he in the right strike zone? All of those things make a difference. On my bigger mullet rod, the Tsunami Saltex, I'm running 30-pound braid just to give me that little bit of when I need to turn that thing around. I need that extra little bit of power. And that's when we go on to our leader, which is going to be, boom, your fluorocarbon leader. There's a lot of debate on fluorocarbon. Monofilament does the same thing. Is it worth the extra dollars? Me personally, I take a mental comfort in buying fluoro. My wallet doesn't like it, but my mind feels I bought the best thing. And confidence is the name of the game in fishing. I like to go really light because typically in the beach water, it's going to be very clean, very clear water, and they're going to be able to see that line. And you don't want that fish of a lifetime to swim up on your bait with the full intention of eating it. And you had an 80-pound line showing in the water, and that fish just decides, nah, swimming away. 20-pound with a circle hook is more than enough to land almost any snook. If you're going to be using big mullets, especially during the fall, the fall, like that November, October mullet run, you might want to go up to 30, 40-pound fluoro when you're using those big mullet on your bigger rod. Moving on to the next part of this is going to be your hooks. So you have your rod, reel, you have your 20-pound braid, you have your 20-pound fluorocarbon leader that's connected with an FG knot or a PR knot. You're going to go to your hook next, tied with a uni knot. What hooks do I use? What hooks do I recommend? Circle hooks. My personal preference, Mustad Demon Ultra Point circle hooks. There's only 3 size hooks I take with me on a trip. Just these 3. And that's 2/0, 4/0, 6/0. My 2/0 is for my smaller pilchards, even a shrimp. My 4/0 is going to be for those medium-sized pilchard, you know, all the way up, medium to large pilchard, all the way up to a finger mullet. My 6/0 and my 6/0 is going to be for bigger mullet. With those 3 hook sizes, this is all I need to put in my tackle bag when it comes to what hook am I taking for live baiting on the shore. And remember, hook size isn't decided by the fish that you're targeting when you're going on the beach. It's more dependent upon the size of your bait. You don't want to you don't want to go out there with 6/0 hooks on a baby pilchard. You're going to just drown it. That nose is going to go straight down. He's going to hold the bottom and he's going to die. You also don't want to go with too small of a hook because if you're targeting a bigger snook and you got that 2/0 and you have this big mullet, chances are hooking to a larger fish. Not to say I haven't caught big fish with the number 2 size circle hooks. You just got to know how to play them, baby. Now we're going to go down to our lures. And lure selection, in my opinion, is dependent upon conditions presented. If I get out there and the wind is calm and the water is nice and clear, I'm going to want to throw a very white bait. I'm going to want to throw something similar to this. This is a DOA 3-inch glow color cow. If I have some high wind, but the water's still clean, it's still clear, I'll probably throw this 1/2 ounce trout eye jig head with this 4-inch DOA cow. Caught a lot of fish with this. And then there's also options like this, the live target pilchard. This is a deadly lure. That'll also work very good in clean water. It also comes with this built-in thing that's supposed to like stop seaweed from fouling on your hook. I kind of don't, you know, there's all kind of things that come with every single lure. Now, if the water's dirty and it's murky, I'm going to want to throw a darker lure so that there's more contrast. I'm going to throw my DOA Cow 3-inch root beer with the chartreuse tail, one of my favorite lures, again with the trout eye. This is a 3-inch jig head. I have my Terror Eyes. I used to not believe in this lure, and I couldn't believe what it caught. This is one of my favorite little lures when there's current, in particular around structure, or if you got micro baits around, this will match the hatch. And then I have my 4-inch cow. Again, high wind, high current. Maybe I'm fishing deeper water. This will get down there. This will catch anything in the world. Now, let's say you get out there and there's a lot of seaweed, and these things are all getting hung up and you can't fish effectively. Your live bait can't work effectively. So you're going to want to go with like a Texas rig, like a weedless rig like this. This is, again, a 4-inch cow. This is the same exact lure. This is just rigged differently. This, you can literally punch through the grass with this thing and it won't foul up. See how that hook is completely embedded? And then when the fish comes and he bites it from behind, that hook gets exposed. And you set that thing like there's no tomorrow. Because what can happen is even though he gulped it and you set the hook, it might dart straight out. But at least you had a chance at hooking that fish when there was heavy seaweed. And one of my biggest snook ever was caught with this exact pattern, fishing heavy seaweed. People were showing up to the beach and leaving because there was so much seaweed. But you got the secret weapon right now. And you can throw this out there and work it like there's no tomorrow. One more good option when it comes to throwing artificial is going to be your gulp shrimp. And you can pair that with any jig head. You want to have something that has a little bit of a locking end so that your expensive little gulps don't go slipping and sliding all over the hook and can withstand some more strikes. Very effective. Very effective. You're going to work this as you would any other shrimp style bait. You want to work it very slow. Me personally, I like natural colored baits. That doesn't mean all the crazy colors don't work, because I tell you what, at the end of the day, as long as you're catching fish and you're confident, that's all that matters. You can use your cat. Now, you also want to take a cast net and your bucket. You want to have 2 aerators. Pilchards are very sensitive. If you do manage to catch pilchards, you don't want to have more than 2 dozen in a bucket if they're small, 1.5 dozen if they're medium. You don't want them to you don't want them to kill each other fighting for oxygen. You want to have 2 aerators in your 5-gallon bucket. And your cast net, you definitely want to make sure that you have the right size cast net. You don't want to throw 1/4-inch mesh on a bunch of anchovies, because you're going to spend all day picking through that thing when they get gilled. You want to use a 3/8-inch mesh. You want to go up to around 7 feet in Broward, because that's the law by FWC. You can go anywhere, any size you want in Miami-Dade County. And now we've got all the gear ready to catch fish. We've got our bait. You're going to want to have some tools to make your day on the water a little bit easier. My favorite tool, I think any fisherman out there, is going to be this thing. This is a boomerang. This one's actually kind of rusted, stuck. It's not working. But this is a line clipper. This will cut braid. This will cut mono. It'll cut fluoro. It'll cut everything you want. And you can clip this right onto you. I also have it on a carabiner. But my second favorite tool, especially if it's slot season, which is going to be some form of a measuring device. Some form of a measuring device. You want to know if that thing is going to be a slot, if it's going to be a short, if it's going to be an over, just for maybe, personal history, understanding your personal records, because you work really hard to go fishing, and it's nice to remember what you caught beyond the picture. So you have this thing, it pulls out, and when you're done measuring your fish, hey, 28 on the head, it's a keeper. You press this button, and she'll retract, and you keep on fishing. You throw that thing in the cooler, or you put them back in the water if it's an under. FWC does not play around when it comes to these snook. 28 to 32, and they're working on even shrinking that number a little bit more. So we have to wait and see what's going to happen with that. And the last tool that I take with me when I go fishing anywhere is a pair of needle nose pliers. And the longer the needle nose, the better. And even though snook don't have teeth, and you kind of really don't need this to unhook a snook, sometimes they can gulp that bait, that lure, that circle hook sometimes, especially because those are offset, can catch the belly. So when you bring this fish up and that thing is hooked in his throat, in his gullet, there is a way to remove that hook, and it'll increase the chances of that fish's survival dramatically. So many people think these hooks will rust out in 24 hours or 48 hours or a week. I personally don't believe that at all, because I have caught fish with hooks embedded in their mouths that look like they've been there for months, and they still weren't close to breaking off. So with this tool, it'll help. So this is how the hook would be inside of that fish's gullet, right down in the gullet. Now, most people that are just horrible will take this line and just rip it out, creating a massive hole internally. That fish is not gonna make it. So when that hook is in that fish's gullet, you wanna lift up the gill plate, move the gills out the side, be gentle with the gills. The hook is gonna be in the gullet like this. You come in through the gill plate and you wanna kind of push this down. You wanna push it down so that the back of the hook is sticking up, not the shank. You're trying to turn that hook. Then you're going to grab your pliers. You come through the top of the mouth, and you're going to pull that hook out. I personally can't stand when I see somebody rough handle, especially a snook or a tarpon or a game species that isn't edible, whether it be legal-wise or just sportsman-wise. You just don't eat these kind of fish. Because there's a way to release that fish safely. Remove the hook as if you were removing it from your own hand. When some guys get a hook in their hand, they want to go to the hospital. But when they hook a 40-inch, 41-inch breeder snook, they just rip this thing out and flip the snook back in the water, pissed off that they just can't kill it. Well, that snook is going to create the snook that you can kill maybe one day. So you want to be gentle with these fish. One last note about fishing gear. Anybody that's familiar with fishing gear, those that some of these reels and some of these rods can get very, very, very expensive. And let me tell you something, the fish don't care. The fish don't care how much you spent on your Sawtex. The fish don't care how much braid you have on. I'll tell you what they do care about. How does that food look? How does that lure look? Is it edible? Is it a presentation that I am willing to eat? Because I tell you what, I have fished next to guys that had way better gear than me, and I outfished them because I know where the fish are going to be. The fish are not there only biting pens. They're not only out there biting Saragossas and Stratics. How many times have you been at the beach and the guy that's reeling this way is fighting a 100-pound tarpon? You know, the fish don't care about anything except how you present the food. That's your job. That's your job, to catch the good fish, the big fish, the ones that you're going to be proud about. So don't worry about spending all your money on having the best gear. Focus first on figuring out fish tendencies, where they're going to be, and how to make them bite. Even when they're not biting. When you use a lure in the proper way, you can make that fish bite just out of a reaction, just out of triggering his instinct. Okay? So don't go crazy trying to spend $400 on a Sawtex when the biggest fish you ever caught was a blue runner. That was me. I used to spend $300 on a reel, and I used to take pictures with blue runners. And then I realized, what am I doing with my life when it comes to fishing? And then I started studying and I started learning, and then I realized it's not about the gear as much as it is about the knowledge and the understanding of fish. All he cares about is that when this thing swims, that it's wounded, that it's dying, and that's an easy meal that he can swim up nice and slow and slurp that thing down and keep on about his day, because he just got a free easy meal without burning too much energy. Now, you take this same lure and you take that same rod and reel that was probably worth $500 in total with braid, fluoro, and the hook and all that, and you dart it across the water, and that thing's gonna go, nah, not chasing that little thing. You might blow your chance. We all blow, and everybody blows more fish opportunities than they can count, because we never know. We never know what's happening when this lure is in the water. Unless you're fishing glass water, then you can see right through, you know what's going on. Which in that case, you might have to go to 10-pound fluoro. Who knows? Now that you're all geared up, we're ready to figure out what days to go fishing. We're going to go over time of the year, climate. We're going to go over the tides, all the scientific stuff that provides a good day of fishing. If you found part 1 at all helpful, I would really appreciate a like on the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please watch part 2 so we can get after them together.